have something to say right away.
Well, first,
Okay.
would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Katherine Beinkafner. I'm a geologist. I'm 80 years old, but I have been all kinds of a geologist in the petroleum industry, in the nuclear waste industry. The last several years, I've worked on hazardous waste. In 1990, I had my 40-hour training for hazardous waste. Every year, I get 8 hours additional training to deal with hazardous waste. So I'm a person who really knows about this stuff. I've worked on cleanup. Right now I'm working on bioremediation of chlorinated solvents. That means that we're cleaning up dry cleaning fluid that's been spilled into the water using bacteria. So I know a lot about all of this contamination stuff. And the first thing I'd like to say is the town supervisor is an idiot. The town engineer doesn't know anything either. And the building inspector fails also. This is absolutely unbelievable. I hadn't seen the movie. I have read Paul Rubin's report. He and I work together a lot. We have several projects going. So he says, oh, read this, and I'm reading it. Oh my God. So there's a contamination there. It's getting into the groundwater of the people who live there. I brought a map. I don't know if the lady gave it to you when you came in, but it shows where the pile of debris is, where the houses are. There's 10 houses in that area. I'll bet every one of those houses will have contaminated water easily within the next 10 years. Some of them already have it. And it's just not good. I'm astounded that this could be allowed to happen. I don't know what's wrong with the town supervisor. Made all these promises and then went completely in the opposite direction. It doesn't make any sense to me. I feel bad for Mr. What's his name? Amy. Okay. Having to spend all this money to get advice. I mean, just the testing, the laboratory testing of groundwater could be thousands of dollars. And then to find out you can't drink it, and then to have to provide your own water is a whole other thing. That's just scary. But anyway, that's just my opinion.
I just want to introduce myself. I'm Jessie. I live down gradient from the dump, and I can no longer drink my water.
Can you shower or with that water or not?
To my understanding, yes.
Oh, I brought a distillation unit. Do you
Yeah.
have it to show people?
Yeah, I could bring it out, but I also
Okay.
want to do, this is Chris.
Yeah.
He's the filmmaker. So yeah, I mean, I could have, I would like to ask you in front of everyone is how would you recommend us to filter our water, or what do you suggest in terms of how we drink?
Well, there are a few choices, but I would actually distill the water. Because when you distill the water, the water is in the container. You boil it, and then the steam from the water condenses in the condenser, and then it flows into another container. So that anything that isn't steam is left behind back in the first metal container. And then you can clean that out. Lots of times, well, there's so much calcium in all the water in this area, calcium and manganese. You often find a little powder in there when you distill the water, so you can clean that out each time. But even if it's other stuff, you can be cleaning it out and then put no more water in there and distill it. That's the cleanest way to get safe water. But it's expensive because you've got to use electricity to make steam, condense it, and then put it into the other pot.
Plug it in the town offices.
And we had a pretty large distillation unit. We had one on the countertop that was like this big by this big, and all that was the container the water was in, and then the water container below it with a little thing so you could pour it into your glass or whatever you wanted.
So you're suggesting that all
I think
of us down gradient need to distill all of our water
at least
before
what
we
you're going to
drink
drink and what you're going to cook with.
For how long?
Well, this program of testing the water is critical because you don't really know what's in that water until it's tested. And there's 10 houses on that map. You know, who's going to pay for all that? And, you know, a water test, it isn't just one water test. They test for metals. They test for volatile organic compounds. They test for semi-organic volatile compounds. They test for herbicides, pesticides, insecticides. Oh my God, there's probably 10 other categories. Oh, PFAS. Now we test for PFAS. PFAS is measured in parts per trillion. Everything else is in parts per billion. And I have it in my water.
What is PFAS?
It's this forever chemical. It was discovered up in Hoosick Falls a few years ago, and now it's in the Newburgh water supply. And it's, I don't know what it comes from. I think some of it comes from fire retardant. And I don't know why it's in my water. I live on 4455 in Clintondale. I have no idea, but I have like 1 part per trillion. So I drink it, you know. I haven't died yet, but.
From plastic.
But if there were a lot, the state drinking water standard is probably like 2.7 parts per trillion or some number like that. So I'm below that, the standard, but I don't know. I don't know how to get it out there. I'm not going to distill all my water because of that one thing. Yes.
I'm just wondering, like, what we can do as, like, community to help support, like, should we be making, like, what can we do to help?
We have to get together a group of people who is going to bring suit against the town. Because the town has not done their job. First of all, Plan E was never approved by the town board. And I didn't even know what Plan E was till today. So legally, they have to, why didn't they ever hire somebody to remove all the stuff from this site and truck it off to someplace else? You know why? It's going to cost millions of dollars. It is not cheap. Every truckload that goes to one of these places, you got to sample it. What the hell do you sample it for? It's a very complicated process.
Yeah, I actually want, can you describe a little bit of what a proper cleanup would look like?
Well, you know, if it were mine, and I lived next door, I would make the property owner make it all go back to the place in Saugerties. Because he got paid to take it from the guy in Saugerties. We know that.
Isn't he in prison?
The guy in Saugerties?
Yeah, I thought
The
he-
dumper is in prison, but
Yeah,
the
he-
property owner
Yeah.
who got paid to have that.
Can I address one thing
Yeah.
about what you can do?
Yeah.
We've been trying to get this issue onto the town board agenda. In June, I asked Bill to put it on the agenda because we'd like to have a public discussion of this Plan E and what the result of it was. And the town board voted yes, that we should, but I haven't been able to get Bill to schedule this meeting. So if everybody in this room wrote a note saying, could you please schedule this meeting that was already approved, that would be a very helpful thing.
Okay.
A note to who?
And then,
To Bill McKenna,
The town
the town
supervisor.
supervisor. And then the second thing is that any letter that you write to the Woodstock Times or to the board or to the supervisor would be great because,
Okay.
and then the last thing is that there's a petition in the email list back there on that, I'll be back there if anybody wants to talk to us. We're Protect Woodstock's Water and we have an email list and we send out things occasionally to people if they want to help us more. So anyway, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good. One other thing is, it isn't just the town, it is the DEC also.
Right.
They have completely ignored this, like, oh, well, there's no contamination there. Well, it turns out that the standards for stuff in soil are pretty high numbers. But when you're dealing with water, it's a whole different story. Nobody has done the type of test you're supposed to do. It's called TCLP. I don't even remember what that stands for. But you take a sample of the soil, you get it into your bottle, you send it to the laboratory, you ask for TCLP, and what they do is, they saturate it with water, and then whatever comes off dissolved in the water, it's like the leaching process that happens in the ground, but they do it in the laboratory. And then they analyze that leachate to find out what's in there, and it turns out that the numbers for water, contaminants in water, are quite low compared to the contaminants allowed in soil. So DEC claiming, oh, there's no contamination because they're calling it soil, is wrong. They should be looking at the TCLP and the problem of it getting into the water, and the problem that, you know, this is coming down the aquifer to the town's water supply wells. And that's serious. This is your whole damn town, not just 10 people over here in this little development.
That was another one of my questions in terms of like getting this removed, and like if there is a civil lawsuit and there's a big group of people, like as a person who lives in West Saugerties, where like I'm not one of these 10 homes, but like how far can we extended like property owners join a lawsuit? I mean, could the whole, I would imagine the entire town of Woodstock at least could, I would think, like.
Well, certainly the people whose water supply comes from those water supply wells. But I mean.
But wouldn't that, then eventually it's going to leak, if it isn't cleaned up, it's just gonna continue to spread, no?
Yes, according to John Conrad, the municipal water and all the private wells in Woodstock
Yeah.
are under threat, according to the gentleman, the geologist that was in the documentary. Yes.
And then it can also get in the Sawkill
Yeah,
and go on to wherever the hell the Sawkill goes. I don't remember. I guess it goes down by Kingston.
Yes, some people
And
do that.
how fast do you think this could happen now that it's been sitting there almost 4 years?
Well, there's already evidence of it being in a couple of the house wells. But, you know, we're not testing everything. So it's certainly, it's there already. And it's just a matter of time, and there's more and more. And sooner or later, it's gonna get into the town wells. And then it's really a problem. Because you can't distill all that water. Then they wanna use carbon filtration, which is very expensive. Because they use activated carbon filtration. So then you have canisters of this carbon, and then you gotta run the water through it, and then you run it through another one, and then you test regularly to see if anything's coming through to the second one from the first one, and oh my God, it's a
Jesse, just a
technical headache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could we talk exactly about what you're describing in your expertise, about the fact that due to this carelessness, this recklessness of a person in town government, there is an inevitable, permanent, and irremediable contamination of the sand gravel aquifer. It may be slow moving down there. A certain person may no longer be an elected official. That person may even, some years hence, have passed away. And beyond the reach, even of public concern. But is it not true that as these pollutants slowly but inexorably move through the sand and gravel aquifer, you can't get them out? And so what
There'll be more and more, and it'll be very difficult.
there is, I'm trying to be forthright, there is a way to petition the city of Kingston to deliver water that's not contaminated. But that's going to be a vast undertaking because our whole system for everybody who drinks in the hamlet is predicated upon.
Kingston barely has enough water as it is now.
Well, that's a concern.
There was somebody who wanted to use their water for something, I don't know, last couple of years.
Poland Spring or something.
And they got told they couldn't because there wasn't enough.
Yeah, well,
So, you know,
there was an attempt to sell 1 million gallons a day to Niagara Water.
was that
And,
was.
and a huge effort killed that one.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if you could opine, it may take 20 years, but eventually, if the pollution gets to that sand and gravel aquifer, it can't be taken out.
right? The answer is this has got to be cleaned up now, as soon as possible, no matter what it takes. If we have to hold a gun to the head of the damn supervisor, he's a fucking idiot. I can't believe it. You know?
Yay.
Sorry, but that's,
What is the homeowner who's Mr. Consigliari? Does he have anything to say about this? I mean, he doesn't want to pay, obviously.
he's the guy who owns the problem.
He says there's nothing wrong with it.
Is he drinking his water?
Yes,
Does he live there?
yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
he didn't live there before, now he does.
No, he does live there.
And it's on the table outside.
So have all the neighbors put in money as well as the Amy's, or?
No, just the Amy's.
The Amy's have got just one lawsuit, and now it's very recent that we actually really understand how many people are affected, because when they did Plan E, they moved a lot of the fill, and so according to Paul Rubin, you know, the number of houses affected has grown. So I wasn't affected, and now, according to him, and now I am.
Where do you live?
I live on Reynolds Lane.
Reynolds Lane.
Right
Yeah.
next door.
But it's the way the hill and everything, it was more this way, and then he spread out the fill.
And the stuff they took out was large particles.
Not all
But
this
the
fine.
dangerous stuff is the fine stuff, because then you have lots and lots of pore space, and the water gets in there and dissolves stuff out of it, and that's how it goes on down and gets into the aquifer.
But now that it's already been 4 years, it's already in. So even if to my understanding, even if they remove the fill tomorrow, for us in particular who live under, that stuff could be in our water at any moment, so we still can't drink our water.
I have a question.
And for the
But
town,
it's
the
really
same,
important to
it's-
get
who
this stuff
knows?
out of there, that's the most important thing.
The reason the supervisor's not getting rid of it, he's saying the DEC gave him a letter saying that, don't see a problem here, it's all okay. I mean, could you just?
That's the problem that I mentioned.
Okay,
The standards for soil are different than the standards for groundwater. And if you really want to know, you don't just test the soil, you do the TCLP test, where they take the soil and they mix it with water and they take off the liquid part and they analyze what's in that liquid. And then you compare it to the groundwater, the drinking water standards of the state of New York. And those numbers are very low. They're in parts per billion. The numbers for soil are much higher. So if you're just going to compare some number for soil, you know, it's meaningless.
yes.
So
Have
this
any
stuff
of the
could be
wells in
there,
that
but-
area been tested that way?
No, none of the wells have been tested properly, have they?
No, as far as I know, there's been testing according to Ruben's report.
There's one well that was, one homeowner, so it's $1,000, a $2,000 test that they did
Yeah.
go ahead and do, and it did have slightly elevated levels of certain things. So, yeah.
Let's see.
It's actually, the Paul Rubens report, the one we're talking about, is also back there if anybody wants to take a look at it.
Well, even if they were tested, and I don't know the results, again, that's illegal, that's something that hasn't been disclosed yet because of the ongoing lawsuit between the property owner and the town of Woodstock. I'm talking about Frank Amy and the town of Woodstock. And Frank has also sued the Conigliaros, his neighbour. So even if there were tests done, and they did come up negative for any wells, that wouldn't say anything, because sometimes it can take up to 3, 4, 5 years for these toxins to get in through down into the aquifer. So
And we don't know when they will be
We don't know-
in, so you
we
can't
don't know
safely
when.
drink your water, because they could be in any moment.
yeah,
So where all this fill came from is, because the guy's in prison, is it still there, all the other fill?
On his site,
Yeah.
I believe, yes.
yeah, it is. They haven't moved it yet because he's
The other side is
He's
much,
lucky he's in
much
jail.
larger. It's a-
yeah, they haven't moved it. The DEC haven't moved it, although they've condemned.
I'm sorry, it's
Still there.
outrageous.
Yeah.
There was testing of Mr. Amy's well, some in 2020, when there was iron and manganese, and sodium. And there was also a little bit of PFAS that happened to be about 0.5 nanograms per liter and the drinking water standard is 2.7. So it's underneath it, but you know, it might not take long. Also, there was arsenic detected, and that was 6.5 parts per billion, and the groundwater standard is 10. And that was in 2020. Let me see what else. More arsenic, 5.9 in 22, and sodium was up to 39,000 parts per billion, which probably also means that chloride is that too, and the sodium is what you worry about with salt. And so it's like twice as high as the drinking water standard. So now you got so much salt, you can't drink it either. And there was more testing in 23, January 23. So he must have laid out quite a bit of money. The arsenic went up. Now it's almost 8 parts per billion, getting closer to the standard of 10. The iron and the manganese are up again, and the sodium again is 39,000, twice as much as the 20,000 parts per billion drinking water standard.
It's getting higher and higher.
So it's going up.
Double the standard.
So, 49 Reynolds Lane. Who lives there?
Those are
The neighbor.
other downgraded neighbors.
Yeah,
They're the only ones who've actually done the testing.
Yeah, they have arsenic in their well at 4.1, and the standard's 10.
But do most people like in this area would have no arsenic?
Probably no arsenic.
No
Yeah,
arsenic
Very
at all.
unusual to have arsenic. Yeah. So who knows what's going on and we don't know what's in that rubble.
So
Nobody
how,
has any clues.
so how can the supervisor use this letter from the DEC to say that a water's not under any threat?
Because the woman who runs the DEC office in New Paltz is not an engineer, apparently. So she has no... Those of us who have licenses, like geologists and engineers, we could be sued for telling a falsehood.
He also said he got a letter, but has anyone seen the letter?
Yeah, we've seen the letter.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's busy talking about soil. And as I pointed out, the standards for soil are completely different than water.
But it's not even soil.
And it's not even soil. You're right. It's rubble. It's crap,
But the DEC actually did no tests. They're going
as
by.
far as I know.
They don't know chemical tests. They do a visual test.
Oh,
Nobody knows who collected these samples right up until today. Nobody knows
okay.
who collected these samples. So these are the samples. The results of these samples were shown to the DEC. The DEC didn't do these tests. They were just given the results, and that's what the letter is.
Oh, so we
it's
need to
confirmed.
ask the DEC through Freedom of Information to see that data.
Yeah, well, it has been seen.
It has been seen.
And that's the information the DEC are using along with the supervisor to say that they don't have a problem with those
But the
results.
problem
Even though they didn't
is
do,
that
even though they
the
didn't do.
samples were not properly collected.
That's right, they weren't, none of the procedures, according to John Conrad, the geologist, none of the proper procedures were followed. The samples were taken from the edge, they were taken from the edge of the Conigliaro dump. And John Conrad said you'd have to dig a trench and take samples from there. So nobody knows how the samples were collected. They could have been collected by anyone.
So we need to put more pressure on the DEC also.
Yeah,
Now, Ruben's letter did go to the DEC,
yeah, that's right.
but
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see any letters after her name.
Well,
So I don't even know.
as Alex says, the law that was broken was a Woodstock law, and only Woodstock can fix it.
Right. Well, the DEC got mixed up originally when it was in Saugerties. Told them to move it.
Yeah, but
So
the
They
DEC
shut it down.
But the DEC dragged their heels for years, I believe, in Sauger. They didn't want to get involved at all, just like here. But eventually, there was a special unit of the DEC brought in, and they monitored Caroli's, and they were like the police, and they stormed this thing, and that's when it started there. But they had to be put under so much pressure before they do that from the town of Saugerties. The DC didn't want to get involved there neither, just like they don't want to really get involved here.
Oh, well, then that's when we have to write to Basil Sagos, the commissioner of the DEC. You know?
Okay?
I mean, I've been looking forward to retiring so I can go up there and lobby about all the crap they do to all these other sites.
Yeah.
The amount of testing you have to do if you're a hazardous waste site is phenomenal. It costs you thousands and thousands of dollars. You're busy testing for stuff that you never even had on your site.
Yeah.
And this site, we don't even know what's there, and they should be paying thousands of dollars testing to find out what is there.
Yeah.
And most other hazardous waste sites, you know, it was a dry cleaner. So it's dry cleaning fluid. We all know how to analyze for that. That's simple. So why should they worry about PFAS if there wasn't any PFAS there? Why should they worry about metals if there was no metals?
And they found 4 different types of PFAS in these tests that weren't done properly.
Still found
They
so
found 4
much.
different types of PFAS in them, and the test wasn't even done properly. Forever chemicals.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And we're all, as residents, now responsible to take care of ourselves. All of this testing, everything is on us. Zero.
right,
Because the
Not
town.
Well, the town should be providing bottled water
Yes.
for all those 10 houses up there.
Yes.
And the town should get on the stick and get something done. I mean, the
He should
supervisors,
be liable.
Totally
Personally
useless.
liable.
Yeah, yeah.
you know, he promised one thing and did nothing.
Did nothing.
Kind of did the opposite.
Did the
Created
opposite.
more of a problem than was already there. That's outrageous. Is he running for office again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks.
Holy shit.
Voting begins on Saturday.
Right, yeah.
Early Saturday. Can you come? Would you? I'd like to extend an invitation for. We have a screening on Saturday at our library. Can you come and take part in that panel discussion with Paul?
Yeah, Paul.
You will- you'll
yeah,
come,
yeah,
will you?
I will come.
I'm so
Yeah.
happy.
Paul and I, we do a lot of work together. That's how I knew about what was going
That's
on.
wonderful.
I'm the proofreader for his
Yeah.
work.
So you're all invited back
So-
Saturday.
Thank
we
you
have,
so
we have
much.
another expert on
Um,
Saturday at the Woodstock Library.
Is there any sort of GoFundMe for Frank?
There is, yeah. There's a go.
Oh, there
if
is?
you Google Frank Amy GoFundMe, it will come up.
Okay.
Yeah, he would be delighted to hear somebody asking that question because it's so unfair.
It's so unfair. He seems like such a wonderful human. I don't know how he stayed so calm.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes, he was incredible.
unbelievable. And wasn't he was in the army or something? I mean, you think,
Yeah, he was in the army. Yeah. And now he's a mechanic with a local public bus company, I believe, in Kingston.